All right. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. We are back as we are every 2 weeks with an Urbit developer call. We like to do these every 2 weeks, usually on a Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And today we've got a very special guest, littel-wolfur. You probably know him. He's been around in the Urbit for a very long time, and has contributed an absolute immense amount, including the Forge, which is a very well-known group. I think it's on its 17th iteration or something like that. It keeps hanging around due to Jake's excellent blacksmithing, keeping this thing alive. And it's amazing that it's actually taken this long to get Jake on a developer call, since he is, really an amazing Urbit developer. And that's going to be, a bit of what he talks about today. This is not as formal of a conversation. Jake's here really to have a conversation about some of the things that he's built and that he's thinking about and where he sees Urbit going. And I think that this is going to be a really accessible, exciting conversation that a large range of us can relate to. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Hey, Jake.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good. So you're the title of this talk, Urbit Yakshaving. Tell me a little bit more about Yakshaving.
Yeah, actually, I kind of wanted to call it yak shedding because it's kind of a combination of yak shaving and bike shedding, which are two very similar things where you just spend an inordinate amount of time doing things that don't really look very productive, but make everything kind of more fun, more exploratory. That's kind of how I've sort of approached programming for a while. So I figured people might want to see how I do things. There's a couple of channels actually on Urbit, the .files one and the Emacs one that I put all of my stuff in, like my random snippets of code or little generators or what have you. So it's kind of just off of that.
Yeah,
it's .files essentially.
Yeah, exactly. You've been building stuff on Urbit for a really long time now, and you've built just a whole bunch of stuff. What's the quick rundown of the things you've hacked on over the years?
Okay, yeah. So the first big one was the spaced repetition gal app, which actually started before OS1 when we just had publish. I don't even think you were around back then, but it was kind of a blog-like format, and there was chat and there was publish, and that was pretty much it. And so at that point, static gal had just came out, so I couldn't figure out dynamic gal. It was really weird. You'd have arms that you had to name specific, like poke arms or something, and I could never figure that out. So I kind of didn't really do a lot of development before static gal. I was just sort of lurking. And then when static gal hit, I just realized, oh man, I could hook anything up with Urbit. So the big change there was the debug library, right? So if you go into a gal app, you'll notice that you can wrap your code in a debug statement, sort of, and then you can call it with plus debug at the dojo, and you'll be able to see the state or whatever. And I thought, wait, why not just do that with anything? You could literally wrap kind of like aspect-oriented programming, right, where you would have things come before and after. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was really cool. And so what I wanted to do was hook that up with a spaced repetition software. So whenever I posted a note or something on a specific notebook, it would schedule it for review. And I actually it still kind of does work. And it's like an undocumented feature. Actually, it probably doesn't work now with GraphStore, but it did work before GraphStore, as many things did.
Many such things, yes.
Yeah, and so I thought that was really cool, and I pretty much went from there, from like publish being a spaced repetition software to it becoming its own thing. And that was good because publish changed a lot. And that was actually one of the reasons why SRS became what it is because of the changes behind publish. And this is actually something that I'm kind of interested in talking about later too, is that this sort of idea of apps, like once they're on your Urbit, you kind of own them. And I don't know if everyone on Urbit or even people like working at Tlon agree with me there, but I kind of like the idea that like once it's on my Urbit, I can do whatever the hell I want with it, and no one can tell me otherwise. So I actually do that a lot with pretty much every part of Urbit. So like, for example, if you've ever noticed in your dojo, you see a bunch of like not responding messages. I've muted all those because it's super annoying and I don't need to know.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, who cares, right? Like,
not important.
I get that like Ains doesn't work the greatest right now. Fine, just shut up for a little bit so I can use the console.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, that SRS was the one thing that I worked on for a while, and I actually offered like planets for people to like contribute code to it, and I think only one person took me up on it because it is quite a messy code base, especially the front end, because the front end is like, it started from old publish, right? So, and then I tried to migrate it to OS1 and only got half of it, and then I like the TypeScript version of SRS is like 30% done. So it's like a hodgepodge of crappy code. So if anyone was like at the town hall, they heard me talk about Urbit as a workshop, and this is kind of the gist of my talk is going through how it is a workshop and how you can leave things super messy. Like right before this call, my office was super messy and I had to like move a bunch of papers and stuff. And that's kind of like how a lot of my life is. And I sort of accepted it. And Urbit kind of makes it a little bit more amenable to actually getting things done.
All right, looks like the yard guys just came by. Anyway, yeah, let's. I think we should get into the meat of the talk because we're basically there.
Yeah, we are.
One thing I'm going to share, if you want to follow along with what Jake is talking about, you should probably just watch the call. But later, you should check out this link I just sent here, which is to his org mode notes, which is also what the way he'll present this. So there's a whole bunch of code snippets and cool things in there. Yeah,
I'll update it later too. There's some snippets that I didn't include that I'm just going to link to and show you. But all of this stuff is also in the Emacs channel. So
okay, cool. Couple other notes at the end of the call. We're going to have a Google Meet that's available to everyone on the call to just come in and hang out with Jake, ask him questions. If you have any questions throughout the talk, you can save them for then. You can ask them during. If Jake notices, he'll answer it then, or I'll keep an eye out, and towards the end of the call, I'll bring him back up if we missed it. We already have one of those questions, which is, please tell us how to mute all of those annoying messages. I'm
it's
sure
actually very simple.
Yeah, I'm sure he
all
can
you
do
have
that.
to do, you have to just search for the not responding in, I think it's ames.hoon. You'll find, actually, we can do it right now.
If you want, I'll leave it to
like
you.
It's very, very quick, right? So
Okay,
I'll show you how I kind of use Emacs.
Okay. Well then, here we go. On to Urbit Yakshaving.
Ames.hoon. Go here, and then you search for what is it, like not responding, right? Right here. See, so all you have to do is take all this and just mute it or comment it out, and then just put a little sig in there. You're done.
Now, is there any danger to this?
No. This doesn't get used anywhere. I looked, tried to figure out whether or not this would actually kill something, and it doesn't. There's only two places where this arm gets called.
Okay.
And they just pretty much just assign it to a text variable.
Okay. Well, there you go. We're already learning. Jake, I'm going to leave it to you.
All right.
Here we go.
Okay. So let me just get back to my one file. Okay. So yeah, as I said, this call is a little bit less formal than the other ones have been. I don't have a specific project that I'm going to go through. I'm pretty much just going to walk through my Emacs setup and kind of talk about how I think using Emacs on Urbit kind of makes it a little bit clearer why Urbit is a thing, really, to be honest. It's unclear when you just use landscape, especially with people who haven't been around for a while and seen the iterations, that Urbit is actually a full computer. And so I know probably most of you on this call know that it is. So I'm probably kind of preaching to the choir a little bit, but one of the things that I really want to get across to people when I talk about Urbit is you can do anything you want with it. It is essentially a networked Emacs. And so the Emacs ethos is very similar to the Urbit one. It's just been sort of covered in mud for the last 30 years. And so there's lots of packages on Emacs. One of the things that I really think is sort of a measure of how good a project is how good the Emacs mode is for it. And so if you look for, say, Google Cloud Emacs mode, you're not going to find very good ones. And so I conclude that Google Cloud is not a good project. But to be honest, there is also a lot of bad things about Emacs. It's single-threaded. It's can get very slow. Right before this call, I was struggling with it because it just decided to freeze on me, and I had to kill it, and probably lost something there. So there's trade-offs you have to make when you use Emacs because it is very powerful. It's kind of like using C, but for note-taking. So one of the things I want to do, I have a couple of tweets here that I kind of just wanted to show. So I use this thing called Yabai. Actually, someone on Urbit showed me this. It's the tiling window manager for Emacs, or for not for Emacs, for Mac OS, and it sort of allows you to get what I wanted in Mac OS after I switched from Nix OS. I still use Nix OS, but sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and use the thing that works. So this is one of the things I think is probably the most important part about Urbit. And this guy, I think his @p is Waterparter. I haven't seen him around recently, but he did this great thread on Urbit Dev where he implemented over email what is essentially SSH into ships. So you can go into your dojo and just link with someone else's ship if you do like a dojo allow remote login, right? And that functionality didn't exist per se in the code base until he tried to build it. And I just remember Phil going through and being like, oh, well, you have to do this, and then realizing that it's actually like the code to do this was already pretty much there. It just needed some sort of massaging to get to where you could just remote into anyone's ship. And so I think this is kind of one of the coolest parts of Urbit is the rewriting the entire stack looks super dumb, right? And you see takes on this all over the internet about how lame it is that Urbit is trying to do this. And so this whole thing is about me trying to show pretty much everyone why this is actually the way to do things. It's like Emacs, but it's less like, say, doing something completely new just to confuse people. Because Emacs is not confusing, but people still hate it. Urbit is confusing. And as you can see by this GPT-3 generated Urbit tweet, the internet thinks it's confusing. One of the things that's very fun about generating things with GPT-3 is you get to sort of sense a sort of sentiment of what people think about certain things. And so first of all, everyone thinks that Urbit is very hard. And second of all, they think it's a blockchain project, which I don't know how we're going to get away from that, but I think it's going to stick around until we get off of Ethereum somehow. Oh yeah, and then there's this I thought was kind of funny. So this is a less wrong thread. It's not showing up. So you guys can all probably click this stuff on your own too. But this is 8 years ago, and I thought this was hilarious because this guy just is talking about how he dreamed of some sort of crazy computing grammar that he was terrified of. And today, that thing actually exists, and you can use it. And a lot of us actually are very productive in it, despite what everyone thought would happen. And I thought that was very very funny to look back on, because this is less wrong, and they're kind of known for being right about stuff and also very, very wrong about stuff. And this is kind of one of those things. So let me just bring my back up. The tiling window manager is called Yabai, Y-A-B-A-I. Okay. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I've already kind of gone over. But this is sort of my foray into Emacs. I started editing config files for bots when I was like in 7th grade or something, and I thought I was a coder, and I was not. But I thought it was cool to use Emacs, and I don't know. There's not much more to that story. Then when I got into college, I studied math and wrote all of my papers and stuff in LaTeX and org mode. And so I got very good at customizing stuff in Emacs and pretty good at Lisp. Actually, if you asked a Lisp developer, I'm sure they would crap all over my code, but it gets the job done, and that's all I really care about. So this was my first big project. This was a like habit tracker, which kind of gamified it gamified your to-do list. And at the time, I was like feeling very unmotivated doing math, and I wanted a way to like, really get my shit together. So I just pretended that I was playing an MMO and just grinding away. And so I wrote this thing to sort of do that. So you can see here, this actually looks like a Magit buffer. If you've ever used Magit, it's this like Git UI in Emacs. That's pretty much, it's better than the text editor or the command line by an order of magnitude. I mean, anyone who's really worked with Git a lot kind of hates the command line, but I don't even know the Git command line because I only used Magit like my entire life. But so you can see here, it has this ability to fold stuff. And this was actually taken from the Magit code, and now that code is separate. It's you can actually use it in other projects. And so one of the things I'm going to talk about a little bit later is how I'd really like to see this sort of style in the Urbit API, which I'll show in a second. But the ability to do text-based manipulation of a UI is extremely powerful. And in Emacs, it's already powerful, like Magic shows. But if you link that up with Urbit, you get something that's it's like the Super Saiyan mode of Urbit, because you aren't kind of handicapped by things like React updates and relying on the landscape devs to fix stuff when it's broken. Like right now, the input boxes were kind of messed up, and so people have been complaining about that. But I haven't even noticed because because for me it's all in Emacs, and I'm just receiving updates from GraphStore. And so I think now is probably a good time to just kind of, oh, yeah, I have this thing about everything is plain text. HTML is dumb, IDEs are dumb, and it was clear that we were going to get siloed messaging platforms when iChat came out. And so I think this is funny because this was a tweet I made last year. This was really pissed me off because I had this nice bridge between iMessage and Matrix, and I was able to chat with people on my NixOS laptop. And then iMessage decided we're going to delete everything in the archive folder for iMessage, because I think they were doing something with threads, right? And so they needed a different DB for that. But it completely messed up how you parsed those DB files. And then now, like, so you say, oh, well, they say they keep our messages forever. Well, how do you know that now? Like, there's no way to query that DB that they use. You don't know anything about that schema. It's kind of ridiculous, and there was no announcement or anything about it. So that's one of the things I think Urbit fixes, because it's not just about protocols anymore. It's actually rewriting the entire stack. XMPP and Jabber didn't solve the problem because they require everyone to use that protocol, and it's just not going to happen. No one gets excited about protocols. Like to act like those things are the solution is, I think, super naive. And I think Matrix is not so much that, but I think it falls in a similar sort of vein where it's they're too focused on getting a standardized sort of messaging platform out there and not realizing that your grandma is never going to use this. Your mom is never going to use this, but my mom uses Urbit. So I actually talked to her on it. She just, my dad and her found a bunch of Pokemon cards recently, and they posted that all on the group feed in our channel, and so it's become sort of normal for them now. And before we were using like Telegram or whatever, which is kind of better in many respects, but and I think most people would probably quit Landscape if they just thought of it as a messaging platform. But there's much more to Urbit. And so I'm going to show you now my the way I actually like use Urbit. Just want to make sure there's no more questions. Okay. So I just switched to Minder Folden's Agora channel, which actually I shouldn't stay on too long because this is private. But that was a key binding, C space. And this is how I navigate Urbit. So I can go to any unread channel with a 2 keystroke command. And so what happens is I'm actually tracking all of the entire graph store in a buffer. And I can look at that buffer like this. This is everything that's been posted across all the groups that I'm in. So hopefully there's nothing offensive in here. I tried to clean it up, but I could have missed something. So what's cool about this is that you can pretty much just use this as a replacement for just clicking into channels all the time. So if we switch over to landscape, for me, this is kind of untenable because I'm in like 100 or something groups. And so it takes a very long time for me to load this. And when it loads, like, I don't know where to go. Like there's too much noise here. So it's not like it's also check this out, right? So I'll go into say, I don't know, Urbit Chess Federation, right? Well, I'm done with that. I go back. Look, I'm back at the top. So now I got to scroll down again. And Leap actually was very slow too. So this used to take forever. Now it's really fast, which is nice. But so I kind of like this is my approach to programming on Urbit is if something doesn't work, I fix it myself first. And if it persists, I sort of say, hey, look, this is a solution. We should do something like that. And I think that is an ethos that Urbit kind of started with, but hasn't kept up as much, at least in user space. At least from my perspective. I don't know. There's definitely like people who are customizing Urbit, but I haven't seen a lot of sort of, you know, separate branches of Arvo, for example. Like no one has their own branch of Arvo that they're running, I think. If anyone knows of anyone, I'd love to talk to you, because I seriously think that one of the major things holding back Urbit development is that people don't realize that you can do stuff like this. So this is literally like a workable chat, right? Like I can say things in here. This color here is custom to my implementation. And I just want to, actually, I probably should have mentioned this before, but I did not write this. This was a project, hold on, sorry. This was a project that, an airlock, an Emacs airlock. I think I'll bring up the link. It's this guy, Tlon X10100. I haven't seen him around in a bit, and he hasn't responded to my PRs. But so I've just ended up forking Urbit API and just sort of using that. And this is, I have a lot of features that aren't in the original Urbit API. So I talked about the Urbit messages buffer. That's this right here. I have better notifications. So we can actually look at some of this stuff here. If you look, this is kind of cool too. I have a tangled dot files. So these actually get compiled together and then put into a single config. I use Doom Emacs. I don't know why it's so damn laggy right now, but you can see there, everything is sort of organized by header, and then they're in these source blocks that get tangled into the config file that's here. And so one of the things I'd really like to see in Urbit is dot file management. I think that Urbit can actually do this correctly. And I know there's sort of this idea that Urbit should never talk to Earth. I kind of disagree. I agree in the sense that it really shouldn't be calling, say, command line programs that are running on the same machine that Urbit is running. But I don't think that means that you can't use the things that already exist and use Urbit to make them better. So let me just go through these. My Urbit customizations, this is all in the Emacs channel in Urbit, but I have these things called track graphs. So if I receive a message on any of these channels, I'll receive a notification. And I did this because I didn't like the way that Landscape has its notifications, because it doesn't tell you the message. I still haven't figured out how to get it to switch to the buffer that it corresponds to the notification, but I don't think that'll be very hard. Let's see, like let's go to Guild Hall, for example. So if I want to go to Guild Hall, I have a key binding for it. So if you look here, this is like how Doom works, right? So Doom kind of gives you this nice little hint keys sort of for all the commands that you've binded. And so I have some for Urbit. So you can see I have read all, chat start, and next unread, which is that C space thing. So if I do chat start, I can see all the different channels that I can join. And what's interesting about this is it shows channels that are old and that have been archived. It shows things that might have disappeared in Landscape somehow. If someone breached and you had to leave their group, or something was weird there, you'll find it here. It's nice because landscape hides a lot of the messiness of Urbit. And while that's usually nice, sometimes you kind of want to get to the bare bones of something. So I go into Guildhall, and so you can see how replies work, right? This is my custom implementation. I don't know. I've always liked this sort of like ASCII like boxes. There's this really cool Emacs package that allows you to draw cool boxes for comments and stuff. And when I was in college, my comment boxes were just super elaborate and ornate, and my professors hated me for it. But I can do that in Urbit. So if I say something here, you can see I have notifications where I can actually see the message. And this is really nice because like the normal landscape doesn't, it just says you have a message in this channel, but I can actually look at the messages in my notifications, and I made it look like it's coming from port because I just liked the logo better than having an Emacs thing there. So that's tracked graphs. Ignore graphs, I can basically ignore them, so they don't show up when there's a couple of channels that I just don't want to see often. Either they're just like full of degenerates, or I just am not interested in them anymore, but I kind of want to keep the channel open just in case someone said something. And so in that case, like when I switch to next unreads, they just won't pick up. So I'll never visit them, and they won't show up in the Urbit messages buffer. So yeah, I already talked about this one. Yeah, this is kind of cool. If there are no more unreads, then it'll visit a random channel that you're in. So this actually is fun because since I'm in so many groups, I've forgotten some of the channels that I've joined. And I've also made it so that it joins, or it shows channels that you haven't joined. So if there's ever a channel that gets made in a group that you haven't visited in a while, if you just keep hitting C space in here, you might eventually get to it. And that I think it's kind of fun. Like the thing that drew me to Urbit was this idea that it's kind of about exploration more than anything. And so there's this one tweet here. This is kind of like, I think all these tweets define how I think about programming on Urbit. Okay. So yeah, programming feels like an adventure again. We just want to watch the world learn. Spaced repetition. No snakers on Urbit, just good vibes. Like these things are I think fundamental to having fun programming, rather than it just being like productive and performant. I think those things matter to some extent, but like Emacs is not performant. Emacs is notorious for being slow as hell, and that constantly crashes. If your code gets too messy, there's not a lot you can do but just completely rewrite it. So one of the things, I think there was someone who was talking about this recently, and I thought it was hilarious, so I quoted it somewhere in here. Let's see if I can find it. Right here. So Emacs is a great OS, only lacking a decent text editor. And so we'll just skip to this because I think this is where we are now. Yeah, Emacs was the original overlay OS. And I think even Curtis talked about this in some of his early talks, that Emacs Urbit kind of gets some inspiration from Emacs. And just full screen this. And I think the pairing of the two of them is like the Yoko to our Lenin. In that yeah, you don't really like it that much. And it looks like it's a lot of trouble. But they really do work well together. And if you don't want to use them both, you don't have to. They have their own thing going. And so with Emacs, everything is text. With Urbit, everything is a noun. Everything is an integer. And those two things are very compatible. So one of the things that I have been thinking about a lot is how do we get a desktop OS soon in Urbit? Because I think writing a full hardware-enabled like knock implementation, trying to deal with hardware device drivers and all that, like that's going to be a very, very long project. And I don't want to wait for that in order to use Urbit like an OS. And so I think Emacs is probably the closest thing that we can get to getting an actual OS. And I think a lot of people at Tlon and in the community think that Urbit needs to move towards that more. And so at the end of this call, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But there's a lot to be said about having kind of competing platforms here. There is no other landscape. I don't think anyone right now is kind of willing to build something like that. But there are other apps and there are airlocks. So there was recently someone wrote a Twitter clone for Urbit. I'm sure some of you know about that, but Urtweet is really, really awesome. And it's written in Elixir. So it is a separate app that calls into Urbit for, it creates like a collection that holds all of your tweets. And what's interesting about this is that if you are using Urtweet and landscape, you won't be able to see your tweets in landscape. I think you'll see notifications when someone mentions you, but you won't be able to see your tweets. What's great about having a global messaging buffer is that everything on Graph Store is here. And so I can see everything that comes in. And so when someone tweets on Urtweet, I actually see it in here too. I also see publish new notes. So I don't yet have a way to display publish or collections yet, but it's not hard because it's all Graph Store. And so like I said, everything is text, everything is a noun. That means that all this stuff is equally parsable. You can do it all in Emacs. And it's a lot easier because Emacs as Lisp, as a Lisp dialect, Emacs Lisp, is very similar to Hoon. And one of the things that some Modest Sorted said this, he says, eLisp is a disgusting mess. Yes, it is. It is a disgusting mess. You just have to look at my configuration file to see that. And Hoon is the exact opposite. It's very, very clean and tidy, and it looks. You can make it look very good. And that's kind of something that I think most people haven't really figured out yet on Urbit because either they're like a Lisp fanatic or they're sort of just only doing Hoon. I don't think there's a lot of overlap there. I'm probably wrong, actually. There's I'm probably wrong. There's a lot of people who love Lisp and also do a lot of Hoon. So I'm just surprised that no one really has taken that to its full extent and basically just used Emacs as this sort of what's the word, like just the squire to Urbit, I guess. So what I really think is that Emacs needs a king. So yeah, if Emacs Trojan horsed an OS inside of a text editor, Urbit did the same thing inside of a browser, and it's very what's the word for it? Like you can control so much of Emacs with Urbit. So not to say that you're calling into Emacs from Urbit, but like you can call into Urbit from Emacs and have that tell Emacs what to do. So one of these things that I've been thinking about a lot is actually using it to possibly make EXWM usable. So if you don't know what EXWM is, it's a window manager written in Emacs. So it becomes your desktop window manager. And I actually used it for like a good year. But the problem is that it's single-threaded Emacs. And so if anything hangs, your whole desktop is screwed, right? Now, in the context of Urbit, what if your Urbit was sort of like the sort of master overseer of your Emacs state. And so if you ever got hung up on a single thread in Emacs, you could always switch back to Urbit and have some sort of like management app in Urbit that could sort of reset Emacs's state or kind of inspect it outside of Emacs itself. And I think these sorts of things are, you only start to think about these things when you really start to make Urbit your own thing. And one of the ways that I've done that is, of course, everything I've shown you, but I've also kind of hooked it up with org Rome. So org Rome is the org mode version of Rome. It's funny, I discovered it somehow by random. I can't remember how, but like it had 0 stars on GitHub, and I ended up writing the buffer logic, which has since been changed to use Magit's buffer framework. But I changed it to that, or I wrote the buffer, and then all of a sudden, like the whole thing just blew up. And like I think org Rome has something like 4,000 stars now. Like this sort of stuff is huge. Yeah, 3.4. So if we go into the first issues, probably right. Shouldn't be doing this, but no, I think it's kind of cool. Hey, where is it? Oh, right. No, I forgot. They changed it to the org Rome repository. It used to be under this guy's. I wonder if he still has it, but yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's like this org mode is very powerful, and it doesn't make sense to me to have something like Rome when you have something like org mode. And it's funny because I used to follow like Connor or something from Rome Research. I mean, I still do, but I used to like tweet at him a bunch because I was kind of pissed that like Rome stole me away from Urbit. And this is what I did, something along the lines of like, yeah, been an org mode user for 10 years, and the difference between how fast it was to add stuff to Rome and to add stuff to org mode was not that big, but big enough to like make me use Rome. And org Rome has changed that, and now I think I'm probably back on Emacs permanently instead of Rome, because you can now do a lot of the things that Rome can do in Urbit. So I go to say, let's see. Yeah, so I took some con notes in here. So con is one of those, it's one of the veins that I'm working on right now to sort of replace Urb, because Urb sucks, and we need a way to communicate with Urbit over a socket, a Unix socket, and we're just going to send it nouns. And so that's what I was talking about. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place. I know I'm not very good at giving talks. But let's see, where is it? That's what I was talking about. Yeah, here. So make EXWN speak nouns, send them to a Unix socket, and you have a very viable desktop OS. And that, in combination with something like org Rome, gives you what the guys over at Rome Research have been, impacting over. They talk about this stuff all the time, like they want to build a global Gaia, I think is the word. And I think the best project position to do that is Urbit. We have the facilities to create something like Rome. We have Graph Store, and you've already seen graph links all over the place now. I really think that that is the most fundamentally amazing part about Urbit, is that you can build this sort of stuff very easily. And this is sort of the end state of that is that someone is going to come along and start to put these pieces together. And so this is kind of my attempt to do that. And the reason why I've chosen Emacs is because it has the same ethos, and it's inspectable. So I can go into any of like the Emacs text editing functions, and I can look at them, like all these functions. Look at all this. Like this is all inspectable. This is very similar to Urbit, where you can literally grep for anything going on in the repo or in your clay desk and figure out actually what's going on. And that feeling is very powerful. And it's necessary if you want to actually get something like networked intelligence. And I don't think we're actually going to get that. But I do think that there is a lot of value in this sort of approach to building an OS. Like Rome wants to build an OS. They should really just get on Urbit and build it here. So, so this is, and I think that if they really it doesn't make any sense to me why Rome people aren't on Urbit and eating it up. There's a hugely powerful intersection of space repetition and reputation. So I've talked about this a lot, and some of you have probably heard it, but I can see something like SRS becoming a way to sort of talk about what you know and showing that you have skin in the game. Like you can show that you've, say, reviewed a specific topic thousands of times, that you have a 95% retention rate, that you've, so for example, I practice guitar through space repetition. So I will have like separate bars of like a piece that I'm learning, or say scales or whatever, and I'll put them in my space repetition program. And then when they come up, I'll practice them until I'm done, and then I'll schedule it depending on like how well I did. And so you essentially build up a sort of, what's the word, like competency metric for what you do. And the more we spend online, the more that sort of stuff is going to be done online. And that's super, it's networking that is very powerful. It doesn't have to just be like this sort of lame social thing. It can be just for you. Like it's nice to see what you've done over the years. One of the biggest things that's kept me on Urbit has been my experiences with platforms when I was growing up, since I've basically lived on the internet since I was like 9. It's weird that I can't go back and look at all of the messages that I sent to people on AIM, that MySpace got to just delete all of my photos. That I used to have a band page up on MySpace, and those songs don't even work anymore. I can't see the friends that I had, or the posts on the bulletin boards, and that's depressing. And Urbit like fixes all of that. Like you can't lose anything on Urbit. And that's kind of amazing. And so I wanted to leave some time for questions, and I just want to make sure that we'll do the Chrome stuff in the Google Meet, because it's kind of interactive, and it's also like not very done. So like it's cool though, because I can load it into GraphStore. This is basically what that shows. It's just going to be a little bit of munging around to get that sort of references working and stuff, but it shows how powerful GraphStore is. And so yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that in a Google Meet. But let me just make sure that I went through everything here. Oh yeah, I do think though that this might not work, and you get something like this, which I thought is funny. But this is right outside of my old apartment in Brooklyn, and I wish Facebook would delete my DMs from middle school. Can you still search those? I didn't know you could do that. I don't even want to know. If I can put that in GraphStore, I would, and I would probably embarrass a lot of people too. So yeah, this is right outside of my old apartment in Brooklyn, and I hated this. This was the worst. I had to walk past this every single day, and it was just depressing, because it's like, that's a great message there, and this is not. This is, behind here is like an abandoned daycare, on like $1 million property, right? This is what we could get from all of our effort. And so that's why I talk about this stuff a lot, is because I think it's very important that we actually try to do it and not just wait around. And sometimes that's trying things that don't work, or trying old things, or things that are kind of nerdy or don't appeal to everyone. And that's fine, but we have to try it. And let's see, there's one. Oh yeah, last thing. This GPT-3, another generated one, because this is what I've been obsessing over. For anyone who's been on Urbit for a little bit knows that I love GPT-3. I probably shouldn't be showing that I'm generating all these things, but whatever. I think this is funny. Zoe Deschanel uses Urbit to host her dot files. Yes, she does, and she should. And I think these sorts of things, while not for everyone, kind of broaden the horizons of what you can and can't do on Urbit, and sort of make things a little bit more exploratory. I think landscape is amazing, but booting up into a terminal and you have to use a terminal, it sort of galvanizes you a little bit. You realize you're at the bare bones of something, and you realize that you have a lot of responsibility that you have to take on for yourself. And that's something that you don't see in pretty much any software project nowadays. It's pretty much like people complaining to maintainers, and Urbit should never be that. And I think making it very hard to get on first kind of got a lot of people who have that same sort of ethos on the network. And that's why we have what we have today. But I think that in order to keep that sort of philosophy and culture, you have to keep sort of iterating on it and doing things that people aren't doing, sort of poking all the holes into everything. There was by the way, anytime you have questions, just say it, because we have like 5 minutes left, I think. And so I'll take them as they come, but I'm also just going to keep talking because I can't see anyone and hear anyone. So I don't want to just like stare at a camera.
Here, I can come back and we can talk. Yeah. Are you done with the screen share? Or you want to keep going?
Let me see. Let me just go. Well, anyone can look at this on their own. So yeah, I'm done.
Okay. We'll call it there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was awesome. It was Yakshaving at its finest.
I'm trying to think if like there's something I didn't talk about though, because the
answer is there is probably
all day. Yeah, there's probably something.
That's okay, because you're extremely accessible.
Yeah.
We could find you in the Forge. You're always hanging around, even when you're coding in Emacs. You're getting,
exactly.
you're there. You're very, very plugged in.
Yeah.
So this was awesome.
I'm the witch of Urbit.
Yes. Yes. I'm curious, like anything, on the horizon. A little bit of a loaded question. Anything on the horizon that you know about?
But I think the thing while I was building the Rome stuff, I was like, wow, this is going to be really hard for someone who doesn't really know how the architecture of Urbit works, and where to sort of start building your own thing. And it's also like, how do I get this to you, right? Like this is cool. Maybe I could show you this code right now, but like, how do you actually get it and use it? Like, sure, I could put it on GitHub, but that seems anti-Urbit. I still don't understand why we use GitHub so much. That's another discussion. Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah.
But
one day.
But yeah, so how do I get it to you, right? And I think this is a question a lot of us have been asking for a while, and that we at Tlon have been working on. So I think you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, we've long before I was here, there's been talk of software distribution and how software that people write on Urbit gets distributed over Urbit. Phil has been wanting this to happen for a very long time, and we're now at a place where I can say we're working on it. and we're working on it with a specific timeline in mind, and we'll actually have something to show you this year. I'm gonna leave it a little vague about the delivery date, but sooner than later. And so what this will let us do is safely, and Phil has been, sure to disambiguate between what we mean by safe. There's really two kinds of safe with respect to Urbit. There's the safe where you can distribute software to someone and they can run it without breaking their ship, right? And Jake, you know a thing or two about this, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what killed the Forge, and SRS multiple times.
Because when you get an over-the-air update, it has to be compatible with the code that's already on your ship. Like, things have to compile.
So like with groups, right? Like you see all the groups I'm in. I do the same thing with apps. I install every single app. I have all of them. I think if there's a missing one, someone let me know. But I put them all on there, and then if they break and no one's maintaining it anymore, I have to go and fix it. And so that is, I think, still good, right? It's still, it's like that sense of responsibility that I was talking about. But there's a better way to do it. Like, there really is.
And so that's really what we're going to be shipping, is this ability to install software in such a way that should your ship be in a state in which it would be broken, there is a path to not have it be broken. You could make a choice about whether or not you want to keep things the way they are to support, the software that's currently on your ship, or you can disable that and move to the update of the underlying system or whatever other package updated.
Yeah. So from what I understand, it makes desks very powerful, right?
Yes.
And they were meant to be powerful, but we haven't really had the tools to do it. Well, they've been there, but it's kind of like the SSH situation that WaterParty did. It's like the infrastructure to do this is there. It's just the tooling. The tooling hasn't been written.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of infrastructure that was missing. It was like 90% of the way there, and so we're bringing it home. And at least you'll be able to install software from, say, Jake, right over the network to your ship, and then boom, you can load up SRRS, which I hear will have a name change at about this time.
Yeah, it's gonna be Sear. Thanks to Phil. Because I can't keep pronouncing SRRS. I sound like an idiot every time I do it.
It's a challenge. So I'm also happy about this name change.
It still has a repeating E too, so it's like, it makes sense. It's still repetition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what the E stands for, we don't know, but it's good.
Emacs.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, we're gonna have something very exciting here, and also because I like it when things spread by word of mouth. I can confirm. You may have heard of this thing called Assembly. Assembly is going to happen in October, and it will be focused on being a developer-oriented event, which I think there's going to be plenty to talk about around October, and I'll leave it at that. So we should jump into the Hangout session.
I think someone asked a question about the number one app. I think the Bitcoin wallet, but it's already installed, so I don't think that counts. Bitcoin. You gotta install one.
It's you get it pretty easily because we ship it over the network.
Chess is probably the best one.
Chess is great.
It's fun.
UCal is also pretty mature.
I haven't checked that out in a bit because.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's got a lot of.
Can you subscribe to events now and everything?
No, you can.
Or can you at least have a shared calendar with someone else?
Yeah,
that's the one thing I was waiting for. Oh, okay, then I got to check it out again.
LFS, definitely check that out. We're actually, and if you want to help out with the calendar, we have a bounty open to continue supporting it and building on it. Specifically, we want to be able to subscribe to external calendars like Google Calendar, and keep the two in sync as one of the things that we've got out there. So, should Bitcoin Wallet have just appeared? Not quite. There's a command you got to run in the dojo. It's bar start, and then BTC wallet. There's a page on urbit.org, urbit.org/Bitcoin wallet, that will describe what the instructions are to get it started. And it's basically what Finn and Palmer just linked right there. But without further ado, let's just go and hang out. here is the meet link that we're going to head to and go and talk there. I'm not going to be able to make it. I gotta jump, but Jake will be there, and he'll be talking about Rome and more Yakshaving. It'll be good. All right.
Thanks, Josh.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Jake. This was great. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. All right. See ya.